following announcement has been paid for by the new Howell order.
Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, I don't know if you guys have been taking notice or not. Sam Howell and Bieniemy are sort of taking the NFL, not necessarily by storm. I think the right way to approach this is that they are putting the NFL on notice. And I think people are starting to take notice. Similar to what happened when there was that preseason game against Baltimore and people started to kind of change their tune a little bit, like, hey, maybe Sam Howell doesn't suck, right? They weren't buying in, but they were like, hey, maybe there's something to this guy. We still don't know, and because we don't know, and he's a funny looking, they're still going to suck this year. And so people were dismissive still, but they were intrigued. I think now that they've seen 2 more games, and again, it's early, and I think a lot of people forget this. Similar to Deion Sanders at Colorado, a lot of people want to see us fail, want to see Sam fail, okay? Because they want to be right. When you dismiss someone as much as Sam was dismissed this offseason, when you tell everyone publicly that this team's going to suck because they're starting a 5th-round quarterback, you want to be vindicated. You want to look like you know what the hell you're talking about. So there's a lot of people rooting for his failure, his demise, especially inside the division, obviously, for various reasons. But people who don't have a rooting interest, who just like to see good football, they're intrigued, okay? They're intrigued, and I think Sam is winning a lot of people over with his play. And I was really interested. I was perusing the internet. I was on YouTube, and I ran into a thumbnail with Chase Daniel, the longtime NFL backup quarterback. Played in the league for a number of years, most notably with the Saints, Chiefs, Bears, and Chargers, right? And he was with the Eagles, had a little cup of tea there as well. You know, well-traveled, okay? And the thing that really intrigued me about him being on that particular show was that he played in Kansas City under Andy Reid and Bieniemy. So his opinion and the things he has to say hold a lot more value with me and carry a lot more weight. So I was really interested to see what he had to say about the start to the season for Sam Howell and what he was seeing with EB's system, and was it the same thing they were running in Kansas City? So I think this was done on The Athletic, and it's about a 15, 16-minute video. It's a good listen, right? So in that video, Chase Daniel talks about EB, and you know, there was a lot of scuttlebutt this offseason when EB was hired here. What was his involvement in Kansas City? Did he really have a lot to do with the game planning and the play calling? And, you know, just what was his impact on that offense? And remember, Shady McCoy tried to slander the man's name and talked about how he really didn't have any input. And when they were making adjustments to watching the film and corrections, he wasn't doing any of it and all of this garbage. Well, Chase Daniel was like, look, bro, I was there at the very beginning when Bieniemy first got the OC job. And I'm just going to tell you, it was a 2-man show. He and Andy Reid were the ones putting the game plan together. They were the ones setting up the things that we were going to do. They're the ones that were implementing everything. It was a 2-man show. And so he's like, EB is very detail-oriented, all the things that we've heard already. But this was a little bit of pulling the curtain back a bit, you know. Chase Daniel saying, hey, look, EB had a massive impact on what the Chiefs did, and you're seeing it here. And he's like, I'll take it a step further. When I was in the NFL, 3 different times, he said, I went from one team to another where I had been exposed to the offense already, And the new offense that they were putting in was the exact same offense from where that person came from. So he gave the 3 examples. He went from the Saints to the Eagles, and Doug Peterson had just taken over in Philadelphia. And they took that same offense from Kansas City and implemented it in Philadelphia, right? He went from Philadelphia to Chicago, I believe it was, and Matt Nagy got the job. And remember, he came from Kansas City, and he said they brought the same offense from Kansas City to Chicago, right? And then he went to the Chargers from Chicago, and Joe Lombardi was the offensive coordinator in Los Angeles, which is why he brought in Chase Daniel, because Chase Daniel was with him in New Orleans, and he brought that same offense from New Orleans. He said he switched up some of the formations, but it was the same offense. And he brought that to Los Angeles with the Chargers. And so he's like, Eric Bieniemy is literally bringing Kansas City's offense with him to Washington. And he said the thing that's been the most impressive is Sam Howell's ability to pick everything up and stand in there and deliver the football. And I've been telling you guys this. Sam's ability to stand in the pocket in the face of pressure, staring down the gun barrel, knowing he's going to get hit and not flinch is uncanny. We watched Eli Manning for almost 2 decades at the mere thought of contact. Dip his shoulder, duck, flinch, and throw the football, and wherever it lands, it lands. All right? We watched him do that for almost 2 decades. Throw the no-look Eli Manning pass, right? Oh, shit, somebody's coming. And duck and get out of the way, right? Not everybody has the ability to stand tall in the pocket knowing that danger is imminent. All right? There is bodily harm coming your way. 300-pounder coming to fall on top of you and standing there and deliver the rock. And we've seen Sam do that time and time and time again. Now, we don't want him to continue to take those hits, which is why we need to be better up front. But the ability to do that and throw darts, without question, is exciting stuff. And remember, we're just scratching the surface. A lot of people, and I said this at the top, a lot of people are treating Sam Howell as if he's a third-year starter, like he's Zach Wilson, and this is year 3. This man's 3rd start was Sunday. He's going into his 4th career NFL start. I put a lot of pressure on Sam because to whom much is given, much is expected. I expect Sam to go out and do these things. They don't. He's a 5th-round pick. He can't do this quick, right? It's the same way we looked at Brock Purdy last year. Like, oh my God, how is this 7th-round pick doing all of these things? He played a lot of football. But I want to turn the tables and focus on Eric Bieniemy for a second. Because EB, I think, is really starting to cement his place within the league construct. And I think if this continues, obviously it's early. We're only in week number 3. We're going into week 3. So there's a lot of time for this season to go in a multitude of directions. But we're off to a great start. And it's hard to not notice what's going on right now with Washington. Because I already told you guys, and you guys know this. You've watched enough. But you knew this. You didn't need me to tell you. But I said it anyway, and I've said it multiple times this offseason. If Eric Bieniemy comes here and takes this 5th-round unknown draft pick out of North Carolina and revamps this offense and gets it to look like a respectable unit, he's going to get a job. It's trending in that direction right now. And while A lot of you want him to be the head coach here. It's not going to happen. And it may ultimately suck, and it may turn out to be Sean McVay 2.0 when Jay Gruden was here and everyone was telling us how great Sean McVay was, and you don't want to let this guy leave your building. But you weren't going to fire Jay at that time. We just went to the playoffs, and we should have made it in 16 as well, and then McVay goes over and gets the job. We weren't going to fire Jay at that time. And if we win big this year, we're not going to fire Ron. And there's some of you that, well, Ron should move in the front. Ron's not moving into the front office. Ron wants to be a head coach. And Ron brought Eric Bieniemy specifically here to do exactly what he's doing. 1, to help Ron save his job. 2, to help Eric get a job. And right now, both of those things are happening simultaneously. Now, again, long season. We are only 2 weeks in, going into week 3. But this is what I encourage. Enjoy this. I don't know how long this is going to last. Enjoy this. All right? Enjoy EB's presence here, his commitment to and dedication to the details and making sure that things are what they are supposed to be. We'll talk more about EB and the things he said at his presser today. But just enjoy this. Be where your feet are. Be where your feet are. Enjoy this. Okay? Because we don't know how long it's going to last. All you can hope is that EB's commitment to the details of what's being done, his overcommitment, as he likes to say, do a great job of over-communicating. You have to hope that all of this rubs off and Tavita Pritchard is soaking as much of this up as he can, and he's soaking it up like a sponge. And that Tavita Pritchard doesn't have his own ideology and his own way of going about things, and that this is a blank slate that we brought in here from Stanford, which highly unlikely because he was an offensive coordinator, at Stanford. So he's got to have his own philosophical approach to the game. But you're hoping that he wiped the slate clean when he got here, and all he's doing is inputting in EB-like habits, formations, shifts, principles, and that once EB gets that job, because if this continues, and we want it to, he's going to be gone. Someone's going to finally give him the opportunity that he has earned and deserved for so long. And we got to hope that Tavita Pritchard is ready to step into this role. That's the only hope that we have. But in the meantime, don't worry about all that. Worry about now. Take all of this in. We deserve it. This is going to be a fun season. I told you that before the season started. This is going to be a fun ride. And what's probably going to make it as fun as it is the fact that EB is here and Sam is here. And right now, the two of them together are putting the league on notice. And I just want to give you one more sidebar conversation to this, start of the show. And this conversation that we're having right now. One sidebar. For as much credit as EB is going to get for this team turning around and being competitive and scoring points on offense, which he should get the vast majority of the credit, don't forget who put their neck out on the line on a 5th-round quarterback with his job on the line, needing to win in the first year of new ownership. Don't forget who looked everybody in the eyes as he made his world tour, right? As he made his tour around the nation, doing all of the different shows, Radio Row during Super Bowl week, NFL Network, ESPN, Fox, all of that stuff, and looked every single one of those reporters and talking heads in the eyes and said, Sam Howell's our guy. He's really not a 5th-round pick. Go ask anybody that was evaluating the quarterbacks the year prior where he would have been had he come out that year. Job's on the line. Not many guys are ballsy enough to take a guy with one career start and say, hey, that's my quarterback. So while EB is going to get a ton of the praise and he deserves it, don't forget who decided that this quarterback situation was over, done, and finished, and that the guy was already in the building. He'll be getting a lot of credit for that too, just so you know. So again, Ron's not going anywhere. If this thing's successful this year, Ron's going to be here, and the likelihood is EB won't. But you know what? That's okay. All right? It's okay. Just enjoy the ride. We'll figure all of those particulars out down the road, right? Let's just enjoy the ride. Anyway, in other news, we heard from said offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy. We heard from defensive coordinator, Jack Del Rio. And so we'll talk about what they had to say. We'll go behind enemy lines and talk about what the Bills are saying heading into this Week 3 contest versus the Washington Commanders. We'll take a look at the game itself and some of the nuance of this game and some of the particulars as we get prepared for the stiffest competition to date this season for the undefeated 2-0 Washington Commanders. But before we do any of that, let's take a look at the injury report for both teams heading into this contest. We start with the good guys. And this looks exactly the way that I thought it would. And we already kind of know what's going on here. And I explained this yesterday. This is a clean injury report, guys. Daron Payne, ankle, didn't practice yesterday, limited today. He's going to go. There's no reason to think that he won't. He told the media yesterday he's good. I believe him. He'll be fine. Logan Thomas, concussion. I already told you. You already knew this. You saw the shot. The guy was unconscious on the field. He got up, thumbs up. All of that was great to see him running off the field, but we all know he's not playing this week. It wouldn't shock me if he doesn't play next week either. You know, it was a vicious hit, but we'll see what happens as far as next week is concerned. This week, you can go ahead and put him out of this game against the Buffalo Bills. And I forgot that that's one of his former teams, so he would have been playing against his former team. And he's done that already. We went to Buffalo 2 years ago, and he caught a touchdown in that game, so it's not like he didn't get to play against Buffalo. But anyway, Quan Martin missed last week with a concussion, was limited. I told you guys, I said he'll be full on Thursday. Look at Quan Martin. He's full. So, again, he'll play this week. Curtis Samuel, hip, was full yesterday. He's full today. Again, he won't be on the injury report come Sunday. Nick Gates, barring any kind of a setback, obviously. Nick Gates, same with him. Knee, full Wednesday, full Thursday. Barring any kind of setback, he won't be on the injury report. Same with Brian Robinson. He had the hip last week. I believe it was last week. Full Wednesday, full Thursday. He won't be on the injury report either when this thing comes out on Sunday. So this is a pretty clean injury report for us. Meanwhile, taking a look at Denver's side of things, or excuse me, Buffalo's side of things. So it's a nice list, but when you really dive into it, there's not a lot here, okay? So let's go through this real quick. Starting middle linebacker Terrell Bernard, who had an interception last week against the Raiders. Knee quad, limited Wednesday, limited Thursday. He's going to play on Sunday. That's my guess. Leonard Floyd, I told you, would be a really good get for us if he could be out because he's their best pass rusher with no Von Miller. Ankle. Didn't practice Wednesday, out there in a limited basis Thursday. He's going to play. And I've been reading up on him and Micah Hyde, who both sustained injuries late in the Raiders game. And both of those guys said, hey, I'm good for next week. So expect Leonard Floyd and Micah Hyde, speaking of which, hamstring, did not practice Wednesday, limited today. Expect both of those guys in the lineup on Sunday when we take on the Bills. Now, Dawson Knox, whole different story. Back injury. We know backs can be very, very tricky. Didn't practice Wednesday, did not practice again on Thursday. My guess is he'll be out of this game. We'll see what happens tomorrow. He could be limited tomorrow and then be a game time decision and end up going on Sunday. But right now, I'm looking at Dawson Knox and I'm saying, I don't think you're going to be able to go here, big man. And if he can't go, the Bills have been in 12 personnel quite a bit this year because they've got two really talented tight ends. We talked about them drafting Dalton Kincaid to already go along with Dawson Knox, who they just gave a contract extension to not too long ago. Two really good pass-catching tight ends, two really good tight ends who are getting better as blockers as well. You take Dawson Knox out of the mix, and now that 12 personnel doesn't look as hot. It's not as attractive. So you may get a switch up there if there's no Dawson Knox. We'll see. That could be a big loss for them. Jordan Phillips with an illness. I told you guys, illnesses, I treat them as day-to-day. Generally, if you're sick on Wednesday, you'll be ready by Sunday. You might not be yourself, but you'll be ready to play. He was a DNP yesterday, full participant today. He's not going to be on the injury report come Sunday. Now we had 3 guys added to this list. This is fluff. This is trash. Spencer Brown, shoulder. He's their starting right tackle. Limited practice today. Okay, he'll be fine. Jordan Poyer, vet rest. He shouldn't even be up here. They have to report this, but he's playing on Sunday. And then James Cook, personal, right? So, again, who knows what that means, but he'll be back by Sunday. If he left the team or whatever, he'll be back on Sunday. So, none of those guys that they added to this list are of any nutritional value. So, really, the only guy that I'm looking at saying he's not going to play is Dawson Knox right now, and that could change on Friday with his status there. But right now, he's leaning towards not playing. Everybody else looks like they're going to be able to go on Sunday. So, it's going to be a pretty good matchup in terms of injuries. No, big time names out of this game that weren't already out to begin with, like, Von Miller, who is on, IR to start on the PUP list. So looks like this is going to be a pretty fair fight. There will be no advantages gained on either end, really, with anybody missing the game per se. So talk about what the coordinators had to say. We start with EB, and he talked about the growth and maturation of the offense. You remember yesterday, Sam talked about kind of taking ownership of the offense and ranking the plays in the order in which he likes them in terms of how they call things. And so, of course, that was brought up to EB today, and he talked about learning that from Andy Reid, learning that when you give players an opportunity to pick out plays that they like, it forces them to take ownership, right? And it's human nature that if I give you the liberty to choose something, you want to prove that you knew what you were talking about and that you were right, so that they give you more leeway, that they give you more opportunities to have say-so, right? So EB's like, what we found is that when we give the quarterback opportunities to pick out plays that he likes, he's going to go out of his way, and his players are going to back him up to go out of his way and go out of their way to make that play work. So you're forcing them to take ownership of everything. And so he's like, it's something that I learned, and it's proved to be really good as a tool to motivate players. So he talked about that. He said, you know what? It's crazy about Sam is that, most quarterbacks in their third start, you're just hoping they can get the play out of their mouth in enough time to get to the line of scrimmage, to then be able to make checks, set protection, do the motions and all the things that we got going on pre-snap. You just want them to be able to get that operation up cleanly. We've been through the first 2 weeks of the season, and how many teams have we played against that have had to burn a timeout? In each game, the opposition has had to burn a timeout because they couldn't get the play call in, or they were running out of time as they tried to get their shifts and motions before the snap. We haven't had any such issues. EB was on these guys in the preseason about in camp about hurrying up, no jogging, no walking, get to the line of scrimmage, get out of the huddle. If they didn't do it right, he would send them back into the huddle, or he would tell them to get off the field. All of those things are coming to light now, and you're seeing these players be prepared. And he's like, most teams with a young quarterback and going into his third, you're just hoping that he can get everything done. Sam's past that. Now we're working on, hey, what do you like? What plays do you like? What can we do here? What did you see there? And he talks about Sam coming off the field, and again, that autocorrect that they've been talking about. And hey, I should have done this, or hey, I saw this late. Next time we get an opportunity, I can go here if we get that same look. So there's a lot of good there. That dialogue between quarterback and offensive coordinator, there's a lot of good happening between Sam and EB right now. He talked about, what I've also realized, and one of the things that I was going to talk about at the beginning of the show today, and I said, I don't think it's as big a deal as I made it out to be, was EB's relationship with everybody. EB knows everybody. And so, like last week, for instance, Vance Joseph is the defensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos. he and EB went to the University of Colorado together, and he's like, that's like one of my best friends, right? And he calls him VJ, right? And he's like, I know everything about VJ. And so in my mind, I'm thinking the reason we were able to call those screens and the reason we were able to carve up Denver's defense with ease is because Eric Bieniemy was in Vance Joseph's head. He knows that guy. He knows his temperament. He knows what he wants to do. Like, there was one screen we dialed up, and, you know, look, in the course of a game, you just catch a team in the perfect look for the play call that you have. And they came with an all-out pressure almost. It was a 6-man blitz. We caught him, and that was the screen to Brian Robinson up the right sideline where Sam Cosmi and Sadiq Charles fall down, right? Sadiq Charles tries to go behind Cosmi. He clips his ankle. They both fall down, and they block no one. And you're just going, what the F, bro? You know, if you just stay on your feet, this might be a touchdown. What are we doing here, guys? But he caught him in the perfect look. They came with that pressure. Sam held it as long as he could. He got it to B-Rob, and that shit opened up and parted like the Red Sea. And I'm just thinking to myself as I'm watching this, like, Eric Bieniemy pushed every single right button. There was never a time where he pushed the wrong button. And I was like, this almost feels like it's too good to be true. And so I started thinking, was this game only that good because he knew Vance Joseph? And then I said, maybe it was, but he knew he knows the Eagles head coach, right? Jonathan Gannon, he talked about how he knew him and how he's been studying him since he was in Indy and here and there. And obviously they went against them in the Super Bowl, so he's really familiar with what they were going to be doing. And then he talked about today, oh man, me and Sean McDermott go all the way back to 1999 with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm like, well, who don't you know, bro? So it doesn't really matter at this point. You know, he talked about the relationship with him and Sean McDermott. And you know what I also, you know, we'll save that for Behind Enemy Lines. EB also talked about, you know, the offense as a whole and the maturation of Sam and what's next for him. What are some of the things that he needs to start doing? And, you know, he said, one of the things I don't want to do is I don't want to take his ability to extend plays away from him, right? But at the same time, we don't want him taking hits and sacks and things of that nature. So there's this fine line, there's this balance that you're looking to find and create. But at the end of the day, Sam's a special dude. And what you don't do to special talents is rein them in. Like Josh Allen, you just have to take the good with the bad with him. He's going to turn it over sometimes because he's Josh Allen. While you would like to rein that in, you don't want him to be anything but Josh Allen. And sometimes taking the bad Josh is going to get you to the good Josh. And the good Josh far outweighs the bad Josh. That's why the Bills are one of the best teams in football. So, and he also talked about Bills linebacker. Y'all know how I feel about him. Matt Milano. I wanted him. You guys remember how badly I wanted Matt Milano in free agency like 2-3 years ago. You guys know. So you know how I feel about Matt Milano. Well, EB talked about just the player that he is. He's like, let me give him his flowers right now. This guy's amazing. Probably underrated in the league. One of the best middle linebackers. I put him right in that same conversation with Fred Warner, you know, in the best of the best in the NFL. He's right in that conversation. And he had a crazy pick against the Raiders last week. And Eric's like, yeah, we got to know where this dude is at all times. Like, he's a problem. So, a lot of good stuff from EB. And they tried to get him to talk about, you know, some of the things that they were doing. And he was like, you already said it all. Like, I'm not giving you nothing, bro. Like, don't try to get me to start talking about the nuances of our offense and the screen game. But EB did say about the screen game, you know, and this is what Sam said. It's the attention to detail. You know, it's doing the little things. The screen game, it's such a fine line between success and failure with the screen. All it takes is one aspect of that thing to not go well, and the whole play goes to hell in a handbasket. There's so many nuances. It's so layered, screens are. You know, how fast do you let the defensive lineman through, right? How well do you sell the fact that you're blocking? Because if you tell them early on, which is what our line did last year, we were terrible. We would hold the blocks too long. Then we would try to get out. We're not athletic enough to get out. And so the screens wouldn't have any blockers in front of the running back. And so you're getting tackled for a 3-yard loss, right? But if you let them go too soon, they're going to know something's up. And so they're going to run out to the screen, and now it's going to get blown up because somebody's going to retrace their steps and they're going to make the play. So there's this fine line between, hey, you want to block, but you also want to make them feel like they're winning. Like you lose, but you make them feel like they're winning, but you lose on purpose, and then you push them in their back and you take off, right? But you have to time it up. And the quarterback has to make it look like a drop back, like he's looking down the field. He's got it, because he can't just automatically drop back and start looking at the running back. They're going to know it's a screen. Like, there's so many nuances. The timing. And you're seeing that. Anyway. Jack Del Rio spoke as well. And Jack had a little fun with the media. He talked about Chase Young first and having him back and what the impact is of that. And he said, same thing Ron had been saying, that the young man did everything he could to stay in shape physically and mentally while he was out, and he was ready to go. And when that opportunity came, he was ready to seize it. That's what he did. He's blessed to have the defensive front that he has, because what that group allows Jack to do is he doesn't have to blitz very often. And you can get away with doing some things on the back end that most teams in the league can't, because you can rush forward and get to the quarterback. So he's like, having these guys, really makes life for him a lot easier. It keeps offensive coordinators up at night, and it makes our job a lot easier to scheme things up, because we can get at you with 4. And if we decide to go 5, it's even worse for you, because now we got one-on-one matchups across the board. So he talked about the linebackers, and specifically Jamin Davis and his growth. And they tried to put Jack in a box about, you see what I did there, Jack in a box? Tried to put Jack in a box in terms of the snaps for Jamin, because Jamin isn't playing 100% of the snaps like Cody Barton is every week. He's only playing like 60 to 70% of the snaps. Usually it's somewhere in that 65 to 60 range. And Jack was like, I don't think about the percentage of snaps. I just think about personnel, groupings, what we're trying to accomplish. And when he's in there, he's playing well. He's playing some of the best football of his career. That's what we want, and we want him to continue to do that. So, and maximize whatever snaps you're out there for, which is the right answer. Then they tried to ask Jack, and this is where things got interesting and funny. They tried to ask Jack specifically about the Cinco package, and Jack's like, bro, how many times I got to tell y'all? I'm not getting into specifics with y'all on this stuff, man. Y'all know I'm not talking scheme and game plan or none of that. He's like, so then somebody asked the question, and Jack referred back to the Cinco package, like, hey, you like him over here, really persistent. Because Jack's like, bro, every week I tell you the same thing and you come back the next week. He's like, you're the most persistent guy that I've ever encountered, man. I'm not giving you what you're looking for. So I love Jack in that regard, because Jack's not going to give you nothing. But Jack talked about our rookie Emmanuel Forbes and, the ups and downs of a rookie. He's like, look, at the end of the day, he made some plays and he gave up some plays. We don't care about the deep ball he gave up. That's part of the game. Everybody here is talented at this level. You're going to give up some plays. What we like is that he came back, wiped the slate clean, got us a pick, played good ball, and helped us win the football game. Now, of course, Jack had to answer to that Hail Mary and also being down 21-3. And he was like, look, all you do in those situations, and EB answered the same question, being down 21-3, what do you do? How do you respond? And essentially their answer without saying it was, hey, you got to chop wood. One play at a time. One snap. And EB's answer was really, really like inspiring shit. He was like, all you can do is worry about the next play. And the most important play is the next play. You execute this play, and then the most important play is the next one. and you just keep going one play at a time, and then you look up and you see where you are at the end of it, and you hope you've done enough. But all you can do is worry about the next play. And Jack pretty much said something to that effect, right? Along those same lines of, hey, you got to chop wood, one play at a time. And he said we went through a stretch there where we had 6 possessions. They had 3 3-and-outs, 2 turnovers, and a short field that was given up after the missed 59-yard field goal, and we forced a field goal. So you got, and in that 6 possession stretch, our offense went bananas, and you go from being down 21-3 to up 35-24, right? So he's like, look, all you can do is take it one play at a time, try to do your job to the best of your abilities, and, you see what happens. So he talked about being down early and weathering the storm. And then he talked about the Hail Mary. He's like, look, man, we just got to be better, bro. We were in the position, which we were. We had 2 guys right there to knock the shit down. How they managed to botch that, I'm still baffled by that. But they got to execute. He's like, luckily enough for us, we were able to get it done on that last snap. So, again, all's well that ends well, but you can't be putting yourself in that type of position. So, solid presser from Jack Del Rio. Now, let's get to behind enemy lines. So, this is going to be a fascinating game from a bunch of standpoints. I talked to you at the beginning of the show about this video I watched with Chase Daniel and this other guy on The Athletic talking about Washington's offense. And the guy that was hosting essentially said, I am so excited to watch this Week 3 contest with the Bills and Commanders. I didn't think I would be this excited for a Week 3 matchup between the Commanders and the Bills going into the season, but I cannot wait to watch this game because of what Washington's doing on offense right now with Sam Howell and Bieniemy. And I think there is this buzz building around this team and this offense in particular. And we already know, everybody knows our defensive line is really good. So I think now this game is going to, and we talked about measuring stick. We talked about what Ron had to say. And, Jack even said, yeah, this is a measuring stick because you're dealing with a big, physical, athletic freak in Josh Allen, and he's a ton to deal with. And we're going to have to figure out a way to just slow him down. You're not going to stop him altogether, but just try to neutralize him somehow. And so this game is going to be a measuring stick game for us, not just on the defensive side with Josh Allen and company, but on the offensive side. Everyone's kind of waiting to see, is this real? Is this legit? Or was it just Arizona and Denver, right? So as a team, this is going to be a big game. Vegas is spoken. They still don't believe. And I get it. It's early. It's Denver. It's Arizona. You were down by 18 points in Week 2. So there's a lot of skepticism still surrounding this team. We're 6.5-point underdogs at home. We're plus 6.5. So Vegas is telling you right there, not really true believer in what you're doing right now. However, the Bills know. Like, they, listening to them talk, they understand the challenge that's in front of them. And I want to bring this up real quick because I forgot all about this, but in doing some of the homework for this particular segment, I ran across some potential bad blood with the Bills because we know everything was all good just a week ago, right, with these dudes. Sean McDermott came from Carolina. He got his opportunity to be a defensive coordinator under Ron Rivera. Made the most of it, got his head coaching opportunity in Buffalo. He hasn't looked back. Brandon Beane was in Carolina with McDermott and Ron Rivera. He got that opportunity in Carolina with Rivera there, and so there's a relationship there. But then, we modeled everything we did after what the Bills did, right? But then there was the J.D. McKissick situation, right? Remember, J.D. was going to sign with them 2 years, $6 million. We were like, yo, what the F, bro? If that's all it was going to take to get JD back, he already made it known he wanted to be back. Why isn't he back? And then he was about to sign. The Bills thought it was a signed, sealed, delivered. It was a done deal. And then we swoop in at the last second, poach him away. He comes back, signs that same 2-year, $6 million deal here in Washington. And the Bills were pissed. Okay, I remember their GM, Brandon Beane, talking about how he did not like it, how he thought that it was some funny business on our end. So there is a little bit of extra sauce here. Now, the Bills have defeated us 5 times in a row in this series. We haven't beaten them since 2015, if I'm not mistaken. That was the last time we played them at home in this series, okay? We went there in 2021, got our brains bashed in. They beat us up pretty good in 2019 in Buffalo as well. I think they've won like 5 out of the last 6. I don't think they've won 5 in a row against us. But we haven't had any success. Josh Allen is undefeated against us. So there's a number of things. I talked about this is the year of snapping streaks, right? We've already done it once by going to Mile High, haven't won there in ages. You know, the Broncos have beaten us, a few times in a row. And so there was a number of streaks. Hadn't beaten the Broncos like in 5 straight contests in Denver. Hadn't beaten them since 2001 or whatever it was. So we snapped a bunch of streaks. Hadn't started 2-0 since 2011. Snapped that, right? It's time to snap another streak here, okay? But some points of emphasis with this particular matchup. The Bills come into the game being one of the best teams right now at sustaining offense. And we come into the game as one of the best teams at getting teams off the field. So the Bills right now are 3rd in the league in length of drive. Their length of drives are a shade over 3.5 minutes long. Okay, so that's good for like 3rd best in the NFL right now. And because of that, they are number 2 in the league right now at time of possession. Okay, so they're not only extending drives out, they're holding on to the ball, they're keeping it away from the other team's offense, and when they get the football, they're cashing in opportunities. They were 5 of 13 on 3rd downs in week 1 versus the Jets. For as bad as they played and as many turnovers, they were 5 of 13, okay, which is a good percentage. It's up around 40%, which is, roughly rating that league average is right around like 44% or so. It's league average, right? Somewhere in there is where you want to be. They were right in that neighborhood at 5 of 13, okay? Then you look at last week, against the Raiders, they were 7 of 13. Okay, that's over 50%. So they're getting it done on 3rd downs. We have the best 3rd down defense, or have had it. 4 of 14 in week 1 were the Cardinals, and then last week the Broncos were 3 of 10 or something like that, I believe. So we continue to get it done on 3rd downs. Now the question becomes, can we do it to a much better, high-octane offense in the Buffalo Bills? One of the things that they want to do, and we talked about this with the 12 personnel, is last year they didn't run the ball well at all. They put a lot of the onus on Josh Allen. They put a lot of the weight on his shoulders, and it showed, and they struggled at times, specifically in the playoffs. This year, they made it a point of emphasis. They spent their 1st-round pick on Dalton Kincaid. They wanted to run the football more. James Cook, their running back that they took in the 3rd round last year, rushed for over 130 yards in the game against the Raiders or whatever it was. He had a fantastic game, and they want to run the football. And they're doing that. And what the Bills have said is that we want to win on both sides of the line of scrimmage. I know that sounds cliche, but it's hard to do against us because our defensive line is so good. They want to win the line of scrimmage. They dominated the Raiders on both sides of the line of scrimmage. That's why Josh Allen went 31 of 37. All right, 83% completion percentage or some nonsense like that, and no turnovers. And that's why they were able to run the football as effectively with all 3 of their backs, specifically James Cook. And that's why they were able to control the game. They got after Jimmy Garoppolo. He threw 2 interceptions. And they held Josh Jacobs to -2 yards rushing in the game. -2 yards rushing for the NFL rush champ from a season ago. So again, they want to dominate the line of scrimmage. We can't allow that to happen. Okay? We got to set the tone defensively up front, and then we got to have our offensive line follow suit. Okay? We know you can run on the Bills. We saw the Jets do it in week 1, but you can't go up there thinking they're just going to allow it to happen. You're going to have to make it happen. They proved that against the Raiders in week 2. So that's something to keep an eye on. They're going to try to exploit our secondary. They saw the big plays that were given up. They saw that the Broncos were able to have some success with some explosives. They're going to try to duplicate that. We have, and I think, honestly, Jack got a little freaky with some of the stuff he was doing, and we were a little lackadaisical on the back end because I don't think we respected the Broncos' ability to push the football vertically. They hadn't done it last year. They didn't do it in week 1, and I don't think we felt like they were going to get us. But they did. I think knowing that Josh Allen is the quarterback and Stephon Diggs is over there and Gabe Davis is over there, I think you're going to see a much more concerted effort to keep 2 safeties back or to keep that single high safety back there, to not be over aggressive. You're going to see a lot of coverage that keeps everything in front of us and not give up big plays down the field. I do believe that. Eric Bieniemy also said in his press conference, with the Bills, you're not going to get a lot of opportunities for shots down the field. You have to be patient. You have to be methodical. You can't make mistakes because they're going to force you to drive your way down the field. They are not going to give you a bunch of chunk opportunities. And so we've got to be able to take what they're giving us. We got to be smart with what we're doing. And so listening to the Bills talk about this matchup, they want to neutralize our defensive front and give Josh Allen time to pick apart what they think is a questionable back end, right? I've already said that there's still this kind of filling out period for me as far as the secondary is concerned. I don't have any doubts about the front 4. But once you get past the front, you get to that back end, I've got questions. So I'm anxious to see if they can find ways to get to Allen without overextending themselves. Rushing is one, retracing their steps, doing the things that you have to do to keep him in that cup, because if he gets loose, he's a problem. But one of the biggest things that the Bills are looking to do against us is I think they are going to try to wear us down. They're going to try to wear our front down, possess the ball as long as they can, which doesn't sound like Buffalo from years, the last few years, but this year is a different animal. And I think they're going to try to wear that front down, have our guys gasping for air because they've been on the field so long, and they're going to try to get Sam and company off the field and keep putting that defense back on the field and wearing them down. We cannot allow that to happen. We cannot allow them to get off to a fast start in this game. There will be opportunities. We have to be prepared to take them. We will talk more about that tomorrow. This is a Bills team that is well aware of what we're capable of. Well aware. They played against Kansas City each of the last 4 years. 2 times in 2 of those years. They know this offense. They've seen it a bunch. It's up to EB to devise a scheme that looks a little bit different than what they got in Kansas City. And just like they know us, EB knows them. He's played against them. He's seen their defense. He knows what Leslie Frazier likes to do. Leslie Frazier isn't there right now. He took a sabbatical, but the guy that's running their defense was under Leslie Frazier. So he knows what this defense is all about. So the key is who can out-scheme who. Only one way to find out. We'll talk more about that tomorrow when we get to the game plan and talk about keys to the game. But that is going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. I thank you guys for joining me. I look forward to chopping it up with you. I know you guys heard the news. It's really, really disappointing to hear that the Dallas Cowboys cornerback Trayvon Diggs injured himself in practice and it has been confirmed via MRI that it is in fact a torn ACL. His season is done. For the number one defense in the league, he was playing exceptional football. We'll see how they try to replace him, but that's going to be a tough, tall task for the Dallas Cowboys. It's a huge loss. And I go back to me going on my soapbox. Injuries can happen at any time. This is the second injury we've seen to a player this season in practice. Travis Kelce injured himself 2 days before the season opener, didn't play. Chiefs lost that game because he wasn't out there. And now Trayvon Diggs injures himself in practice. It can happen at any time. You know, this whole notion of I don't want to put my players on the field in preseason doesn't matter, okay? It's football. You can get hurt at any point, as we just saw. That sucks. You know, I want your best out there because I don't want any excuses. Sucks to hear that he's going to be done for the season. But in any event, it's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commander's Nightly News. Y'all know what it is. Post up. Take command. Until next time, you guys have a good one. Take care.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20. He's